can. Yep, we can. Hold on.
I'm recording. I got you.
Thank you. Thank you that we thought of Chad so that we could record this. We're getting it all handled. We are.
So Nance would like you to repeat your question, Barb.
My question is, do you believe that people are doing the best that they can? So the people in our lives, do you assume positive intent, or do you believe that people are not doing the best that they can and assuming negative intent?
Fascinating question.
Thank you.
It is a good question.
So my first reaction upon hearing the question, my first reaction is no. My assumption is that most of the people are lazy and are doing the bare minimum. But then when you said negative intent, that strikes me differently. So I didn't connect that to negative intent. And my answer is many of the people around me, I don't believe are doing the best they can. I believe they're doing the bare minimum.
Interesting. Good. Thank you. Yeah. So a couple of responses. Amy, hey Amy, from one of my old lives. No, she says no, I assume positive intent, but they can always do more. All right. And I think there's truth to that. I think there's always next level for all of us, right?
No, absolutely.
Julia says, I think they are. They don't know what they don't know. So that is one of my favorite sayings, Julia. So thank you for bringing that up. And so one of my thoughts around this is, so often, because I think people should think like me, or at least I've certainly had that if they don't show up like I would show up, or I think they should show up, then I'm thinking, right, that they aren't doing the best they can. However, their story and their view could be completely different than mine. So, yeah.
Absolutely.
Let's see what else we got.
My automatic reaction is that, yes, I believe that people are doing the best they can do. I agree with Julia. They don't know what they don't know, especially if it's a different situation. I mean, there are a lot of factors. If it's a new situation for somebody, they could be giving it all and not being effective because they don't know what they don't know. If it's kids who are still learning what they know and what they don't know, it's all a variety of things. I'm a benefit of the doubt giver. Always have been, always will be. I always assume positive intent. I never believe somebody's being lazy or whatever just for the sake of being crappy.
Yeah, it's always that thought, did this person who's frustrating me or irritating me get up this morning and be like, I wonder how I can mess with Barb today?
Exactly. I don't believe that for a second.
That question never crosses my mind. I don't connect the two. To me, those are two separate things. I don't think anybody is maliciously doing things to irritate and frustrate me. And I don't think it's an interesting question.
It's an interesting question.
I thought it might get some interesting. So David says, instinctually, I feel like people don't do the best they can, but I try. Yeah, I saw so we don't try, David. Yeah, it's not over.
We all saw that, but thankfully, Kevin called him on that, huh? Yeah, okay.
Nancy said, did it what Kevin said, and Amy. Bob. Oh, hi. Hi, Bob.
Hi, Bob.
Hey, what else we got? Oof.
So Rhonda says, I believe they're doing their best. I also don't know what I don't know. They're on their journey and have their own expectations. I do agree with that.
Yeah.
And what I'm not struggling, but what I'm working through here is the difference between doing their best versus this idea of intent.
So this comes from, say, I get stuff from places. Yeah. So it comes from Brené's Dare to Lead book that we've been reading. And what she says is daring leaders work from the assumption that people are doing the best they can. Leaders struggling with ego, armor, and or lack of skills do not make that assumption. So I took a little in that moment. And then she goes on to say, and she does an exercise. The exercise, we ask folks to write down the name of someone who fills them with frustration, disappointment, and or resentment. And then we propose the idea that that person is doing the best they can. Mm-hmm. And that's a gut check.
Absolutely.
It's a huge gut check because, again, I'm viewing it through my lens or my filter of how I think people should show up. And I definitely still do that. And so I was having this conversation with myself the other day. It's like, oh, yeah, boom, hold up the mirror. And am I assuming, is my story, and this is kind of, Kev, maybe to help the whole intent, is my story around this positive? Am I giving them the benefit of the doubt? Or is my story negative and I'm assuming the worst? And
yeah, so there's my truth.
And my programming that I continue to work on is I often go negative.
Yeah. And
catch myself. And so this is just for me. But this is my week of being vulnerable. This for me, though, is for me to look in the mirror and say, am I just expecting them to show up like me? And God knows I'm creating that for other people too, right? Just how I show up, because I don't show up like they think they would. The question, the conversation that we're having for those of you that have been joining us is whether you believe that people are doing the best that they can, that you assume positive intent. Your story about whatever's going on in that moment has a positive intent versus a negative intent.
So I have a couple of thoughts around that. The first thing is, regarding what Brené Brown said about daring leaders assuming positive intent, and that people are, and coming from a space of people are doing the best that they can. And if we do, and when we do that, then we are better at supporting people and lifting them up and helping them do even better. Because if we're coming at them from a negative, well, you're not pulling your weight, you're not doing everything you can, you're not doing the best that you can, well, then we're digging a hole for both of us from the get-go that we need to get out of before we can even move forward and support and be positive and lift up and move them forward in whatever exercise it is. And that's, because if you start, with anything, if you start from that negative place, you've already created something to overcome. Mm-hmm. And the other point is, to your point about how, and maybe this is some of what Kevin is too, and I can just say that just because I know him so well, but you expect people to show up the way you're showing up. And conversely, at least for me, if I'm not showing up a particular way, I project that. If I'm falling short, I project that. And that's another view of that whole thing.
That's so true.
Yep.
That's that look. One other thing that she says in the book that I find interesting is asking leaders to answer this question is almost always difficult because they quickly move to believing that if people are doing the best they can, they don't know how to lead them. Their strategies of pushing and grinding on the same issue must give way to the difficult task of teaching their team, reassessing their skill gaps, reassigning them, or letting them go.
Mm-hmm.
And so it changes. It's kind of what you were saying. It just, you're looking at it completely different. Lorna says, I'm writing performance reviews and this was so perfectly timed. I'm going to pose that question and take another look at some reviews and some of my comments. Nice.
Awesome.
Yeah, that was the universe conspiring.
Indeed. That's the epitome of it.
I love that one. I love that.
Awesome.
Cool. Well, interesting conversation. Apparently, my Amy, Kevin, knows your Noelle.
Yeah, I see that.
That's pretty cool.
That's funny.
Anybody have any final thoughts on that? It was a good one to kick it off.
That was a good one.
I have a couple others. Let me see. Let's talk about this one. One of my favorite, and I'm hoping Lenny's still on because I know this is Lenny's favorite topic to talk about, and that is trust.
Trust. Yes.
So what are the keys to building authentic trust?
Well, I know the High5 answer.
What's the Michelle answer?
Wow. That's, honest to goodness, for me, I'm pretty intuitive when it comes to people, and I trust just about everyone until they give me a reason not to. So I'm not somebody, so it's hard for me to say because I'm not somebody that you have to work hard for trust from. Authentic trust for me is, and so maybe this is it. If you're showing up authentically, just in general, if you're doing you, because I am who I am, if you're doing you, being who you are, then we're good. There are those occasions when I come across people that I know are not walking the talk, who are not being authentic. I pick that up from the get-go, and so my trust level there is not strong.
So if you feel like that person is putting on a mask or an act or whatever,
yep,
you're going to be, your guard's going to be up.
Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Lorna said same thing, being genuine and having open, honest communication, no judgment. Oh, I like that, Amy.
Yeah.
Trust. So one of the things that, and I think it came from the same book, trust in relation to the best places to work, in the fact that the number one thing that is built in the best places to work is a trusting environment. So trust on the team. And so, how do so our answer to build authentic trust is through accountability, which is doing what you said you would do when you said you would do it. And that's huge, right? And showing up in the manner that you indicated, and if you're not, at least let somebody know. All right, here's my trust expert. He wrote the paper on it, Mr. Howling. Basic trust is built through the steps of connection, caution, and consistency. Authentic trust takes courage, commitment. Hold
and
on.
Confidence. And confidence.
Yeah, and the one that I'll jump on there that Lenny said is, if you don't have trust, you don't have connection.
Yeah. Absolutely.
The accountability piece, for me, it's the it really is in the little things. So, doing what you said you would do when you said you would do it. The big things, I trust people that if you tell me you're going to do something, that you're going to do it, kind of like Michelle. And until you prove me wrong, I'm going to give you the benefit of the doubt there, which is interesting, which is kind of the opposite of my answer to your first question.
Mm-hmm. And it's not really how you show up.
What's not?
That you give the benefit of the doubt until they don't.
Interesting. But if I think about, well, and maybe it's just in what I was thinking about was, if in one of our meetings somebody says I'm going to do X by Friday, I give them the benefit of the doubt it's going to be done by Friday, and I don't feel like I need to necessarily check up on them. And there's a trusted work environment. I work with the people that I trust with everything, right?
Right.
So I wonder if I do in a less not in a less trusting environment, but in a less solid relationship, a newer relationship, or one that hasn't built the same level of trust. I like to believe that if you tell me you're going to do something and it's relatively large, I'm going to believe you're going to do it. And then when I see you not do the little things, that's what then erodes the big thing.
So that puts doubt in your mind about whether the big thing's going to happen.
Correct. And so that's what Michelle was saying, kind of about that inauthenticity, or I know they're not walking the walk. So anyway.
Yeah. And you know what, I'll tell you, because I am so trusting and I am so benefit of the doubt giving, it really upsets me when I really take it to heart when I get that less than authentic vibe from somebody, because it's really very clear to me, and Kevin can vouch for that. From the outset, it's really very clear to me, and it's very upsetting to me because I want to shake them and say, "Stop it." And I don't know why I take it so personally, but I do.
It's because the high I in you want to like them and you want them to like you.
Yes. That's a great point. Yep.
Amy, I'm still unclear about your question, although I laughed at your text message to me.
Do you put a checkup? Is that what you're?
You put a something.
Yeah, do you put a something? I don't understand what that means either.
We'll figure it out. So let's talk about that. So in terms of going back to what Kev said about, if somebody doesn't deliver on the small stuff, you're not going to trust them to deliver. It'll put doubt in you to deliver on the big stuff.
Yeah.
So let's back up the bus here for a moment and have a real kind of painful conversation for all of us at some level. But we get to start with our favorite question first. So because I always want to see what people say. What comes first, trust or transparency? That may not be, but what about trusting ourselves? So are we going to trust ourselves with the big things if we can't even trust ourselves with the little things? So we've had the easy to do, easy not to do conversation on a previous High5 Live from one of our favorite books, The Straight Edge. And this is one that comes up for me a lot, and it's the whole interested versus committed conversation. Am I interested in doing the things that I say I'm going to do? Am I committed? And when I don't keep trust with myself on the little things, am I going to keep it on the big things? So what does that do to erode trust in myself, and how does that impact my relationship with myself, and hence, therefore, relationship with others.
And additionally, the trust of others. That's where I'm coming back to. I project it.
Oh, okay. So this conversation, I am going to go back here to Amy. Amy is saying, do you put something on your calendar to check up? So I think that she's going back to your thing, Kevin. If somebody's got something due on Friday, you trust them to get it on Friday. And I believe, and I'm not always the person that does this, so because I have a pretty high level of trust in the people in my world as well. And is there any harm to say on Wednesday, or saying, hey, you said you get that done by Friday. Is there anything that you need from me, right? Or if you have something, or checking up, putting it on your calendar to make sure it did happen.
Sure.
Well, so let me address that. And so I'm thinking about some things where Michelle has said, I'll do that by whatever date or time. And so I don't put it on my calendar to check up, but there will be periods of time between when she said she would do it and when she said it would be done that I'll say, did you do this? And my mindset much of the time when I'm asking that question is coming from a place of having her back and just thinking about these questions and some of my answers. I wonder if it is a lack of trust, because in that moment it doesn't feel like a lack of trust. It feels like I'm having her back, reminding her just what you said, right? Mm-hmm. And I don't necessarily say, what do you need from me? So it feels like I'm being supportive, but I wonder if it's not coming from that place. I don't know.
Yeah, and the question there is a conversation that we don't necessarily have to have in this moment between the two of you, but it's between the two of you saying, does that feel, when you ask that, does that feel supportive of Michelle, or is she creating a completely different story as a result of you asking that?
Right.
And it goes back to doing the best that we can, and not even that, but positive intent, right? And even if you're projecting positive, if you're saying you're doing it from a positive place, it may or may not feel positive, and that's just the whole communication and the story thing, that checking in with each other on how that feels.
Right. Absolutely.
Lenny says, we break trust all of the time, and we do, with ourselves and with each other. We are human. True. I don't know that. I sometimes feel like I'll say I'm human, right? I sometimes feel like they use the I'm human as an excuse all.
Yeah. Like almost like a cop out.
Like saying I'm sorry.
Like I tried.
Mm-hmm.
I humaned.
Therefore, trust requires maintenance. We have to be open to talking about it, and 100% agree with that.
Yeah.
And being able to rumble, which is from the book, but having those conversations that are uncomfortable when we feel like trust is broken. And the question is, are you willing, am I, so I can own it, am I willing to rumble with myself as well about breaking trust with me? And where am I doing that? And what impact does that have on my life and the rest of my relationships? Because if I can't trust myself, there's a good likelihood that I'm going to build walls between myself and other people. But that's why we always say, what comes first, trust or transparency? We submit that trust comes first, because I've got to build trust in myself first. And even if you see me not keeping my own commitments, not necessarily even my commitments to you, but my commitments to myself, that can create a story for you. If you're not willing to keep your commitments to yourself, are you going to be willing to keep your commitments to me? Interesting, huh?
Yeah, it is interesting. And my gut is, while there are things that I don't keep my commitments, where there are places where I don't keep my commitments to myself on little things. And yet I don't feel like when I make a commitment that I'm going to do something big, it doesn't I don't believe that it impacts me, or I don't see that it impacts, that the little ones don't. When I reflect on myself, as opposed to what I said about looking at other people, and that being said, when I make a commitment to you, the royal you, the royal we, right? If I make a commitment to somebody else, I am way more likely to keep that commitment and be accountable to what I said I would do there than many of the things that I commit to myself.
Ditto. 100% ditto.
Yeah, that's what Nancy just said. Nance just said the same thing.
Yep. And it brings the question, which I've asked numerous times in different ways, all under the umbrella of being kind to yourself. Why does everybody else deserve your commitment and your trust more than you do? Why does everybody else deserve your kindness and trust more than you do? And I'm just as guilty of it. So you're right. It's just a rhetorical question.
Yeah, it just comes back to the choices that we make. And likely one of the reasons that happens is we may give a little bit more thought about the commitments we make to others and less thought to the commitments that we make to ourselves. Or we've just let ourselves down so many times. What's another time to do it? And for me, what I will pose is, if you really did keep your commitments to yourself, if we kept our commitments to ourselves, what would next level look like? What else would be possible for us? And this one is, I've talked about it before, when I really got my eating under control. I don't really want to talk about it again tonight, but when I really got my eating under control and I don't eat sugar or flour, and it's not ever an issue for me, other things in my life started to change for the better. Because I had more trust in myself. When I break trust with myself, then it's easier. It's like, well, I already broke trust, so, whatever, I don't need to do this either. And I think it's worth playing with for all of us in what else is possible when we truly have integrity with the commitments that we make to ourselves. Don't eat the cookie.
That's it. Don't eat the cookie. That's funny.
Don't eat the cookie.
That tracks back to our body shop boot camp. Half the camp, the analogy was around me eating cookies. Yeah. So welcome everybody to Looking in the Mirror by Barb and Michelle. We hope you're enjoying this. Wipe the smoke off.
Wiping the fog off. And again, I go first.
Yeah.
it's the work, right? Leadership is a practice. We say that in our classes, we talk about it. And if I'm not willing to do the self-reflection and look in the mirror and be vulnerable, I mean, yeah, it's the vulnerability of Barb Week, feels like, here at High5 Leadership, putting stuff out there. Why would I expect anybody else to? And I also know how much I grow from these conversations and enjoy them with that. So yeah, I go first, and I appreciate that my team is there with me. All right, are we ready to move on to another?
Well, you know, I do have one more comment about that whole looking in the mirror thing. Honestly, I'm looking in the mirror every day. I have 3 little mirrors reflecting back to me all the time. Well, one's not so little anymore. She's actually 22 and 5'10", but anyway. Things that they say and do. And we talk about this all the time, right? If you're creating a situation, an environment, if you're in a place that you just really don't like what's going on and the way people are behaving and showing up, then maybe the place to start is to look in the mirror. And that comes back to me every time. You know, a child will say or do something, and I'll be like, huh, you weren't born that way.
Yeah.
I played a role in that. Yep.
That's a good lead, and I wasn't going to go here with this topic, but since we have our teen class coming up, I think this could be an interesting conversation. Because one of the things I wrote down, and we might have talked about this before, but was to be more successful, double your rate of failure.
Mm-hmm.
So let's talk about that as it relates to children. So I don't have any, I get that. And what is the capacity of letting your child fail? And what's your willingness to let your child fail, and even pushing them to get out of their comfort zones and fail so that they can double their rate of success? Because it feels, in some cases, these days, that as parents, that we are protecting our children from ever having any hurts and upsets, because we don't want them to suffer from some of the same stuff we did. And yet, are we really helping them? Or are we setting them up when they go out into that world and we're not holding their hands to fall really, really hard because we've not allowed them the opportunity to find out how to fend for themselves?
How to experience reality.
Well, and how to cope with it when they get hit with it.
Yeah.
When everybody doesn't win a trophy or get a trophy. Yeah.
And I don't want to go to the trophy conversation tonight.
I was using that as a reference to teaching, holding their hands and making them feel better and helping them get through life without any failures, and creating a dynamic of that sort.
Yeah.
I like what Lorna says, right? My 15-year-old has to take some failures, but I'm always there to pick her up. That's what it's about, right? So being there to support them and explain and help them and get, like we talk about in class, helping them get up, dust themselves off, and go for it again. That's different. That's letting them experience life and feel the pain of the failure so that they learn.
Right.
Versus never letting them experience it in the first place. And then, yeah, when they get out there on their own and they experience it for the first time, it's like, that's a real WTF moment, right?
Mm-hmm. It is.
Well, and the hardest kind. Are you gonna read Marla.
Yeah, because this is exactly where I was going to go, Lorna. So thank you. Let her work out the right answers and the pathways. So when they fall down and you're supporting them, don't give them all the answers. Let them work through it. And also let them feel their emotions. Boys, girls, everybody.
Whatever. Yep.
Let them feel the emotion because that shit's real.
It is.
And if we teach them to stuff the emotion with whatever happened, we are going to create further issues and lots of therapy bills in the years to come for those folks or for those kids. And we're still not teaching them any life lessons. So perfect.
Yep, that's awesome.
And it really is about we all got to skin up our knees. And if we are not, that means we're stuck in our comfort zone. We're not getting out there and seeing what else is available in this life. Winners lose more than losers lose. I think that's just so critical. But if we don't teach them to take those risks.
Yeah, we see it in our class too, right?
Yeah.
And the example I'm thinking about is during Spiderweb, the last thing we do, right? And we create a scenario where the person we've created the scenario for, we want them to figure it out. And to me, that's the same analogy, right? We let the kid figure it out, and all the adults, all the parents on the other side of the web, they're all given the answer, and it's not the same learning when they don't get
let them do it themselves. And I'm the first person, as I am a parent, and I am a parent of girls, and and you're right, Barb, boys and girls need it. And I'm a girl who's a parent of girls, and so I understand it from that perspective better. And it is the hardest thing to do, to not give them the answers and to watch them feel that pain, because when they're sick, we can give them some Tylenol or some 7-Up or whatever. But when
a Band-Aid with a
when and a kiss on the boo boo and a Band-Aid and all's good. And when they're crying because somebody has hurt them, it's the hardest thing in the world to sit by and let happen as a parent. And yet it's the only way they're going to learn. And it brings me to again, Brene Brown, Dare to Lead, and she talks about empathy and the misempathy, which is so there's a couple of variations of it, right? There's the empathy that says, oh, I know how you feel. I've been there when this happened to me, blah, 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 right? Where we want to connect, and yet it's not about you. It's not about me. It's about them. And their experience is different than my experience because they're different people than I am. Or and this is the thing I have the hardest time with as a mom. I want to say so often, oh my God, I just wish I could make you understand that this will not matter. You know what I mean? I'm like, oh my God, you are not even a year from now will this matter, right? But damn it, it does matter. Right now, it is very real in their worlds. Yep. And it is causing very real pain and very real anxiety. And when we empathize the wrong way, we end up negating or belittling that pain.
Yeah, agreed. Dan asked the question, is it wrong thinking for me to support my daughter as she struggles to understand adulthood? I want her to struggle to grow in the process, but to feel safe in the process. And I think that is the answer, Dan. As long as you're letting her struggle, and Lauren has said it the same way, but you're her safety net, I think that's the answer. Right, we do that for each other in life. It's not just our kids. We're each other's safety nets, and that's relationship, that's connection. It's if we have to have all the answers, and we also think that they should always do it our way. Ooh, there's another great topic. I
gotta go.
I'm on fire tonight. Yeah.
I gotta
Oh
go.
no, you stay put.
I gotta go.
Yeah, not only am I going to
I need
give
to
you
call my therapist.
I'm gonna tell you exactly how to do it, because my way is the right way. Oh my goodness.
I can't tell you how many times I hear the question, why don't you want to do it more efficiently?
Why don't you is really the question.
Just for the record, everybody, your efficient is not someone else's efficient. Let's just put that out there now.
I really do gotta go.
As we continue to look through our lens and filter of how we view the world, oh my gosh, too much fun. We have so much fun getting better to be humans. And as Lenny said earlier, is just the fact that we're all in this together. That's what
I think so. Rhonda actually texted me separately here, and I just want to acknowledge that, one of the most important things about this call for me is that we don't have it all figured out, and I don't have it all figured out. And, I'm a major work in progress. And even though we train this stuff, I want it very clear that we're in this boat right along with everybody else, and vulnerability is strength, right? I mean, putting our shit out there and telling the truth and saying, you know what, I don't always think positively, and I have flaws, and I don't pretend that I don't. And it's important as leaders that we remember to do the work ourselves, to be honest and be vulnerable and put our shit out there, because that's that accountability piece, right? How's anybody going to trust us with the big things if they can't trust us to be honest and vulnerable and do the work that we asked them to do? So this was really important tonight.
Yeah, leadership is a practice.
Yeah,
it absolutely is.
And yeah, I celebrate these conversations because Dominic, I celebrate these conversations because they really give us the opportunity to just be real.
Yeah.
Certainly with myself, yeah.
Well, and if nothing else comes from this except that a few other people start looking in the mirror and thinking about these things and the possibilities too, then our work here is done.
That's why I picked such
hard questions.
I did.
Yeah, thanks for not giving me a heads up on these two, so I didn't have time to manufacture some answers.
I didn't indeed.
Yeah, so for the audience's information, we had no idea these questions were coming tonight.
Yeah.
There was no preparation.
What I got 3 minutes before the call was, you got anything you want to talk about tonight? No, I really don't have. Good, I got some things. Awesome, here we go. I'll carry the conversation, she said. That's the last time I
said I would start it. I didn't say I would carry it. I just said I would start it. We got more Post-it notes. If we don't get through them tonight, we'll get through them.
Great. Next time too.
Lorna, good. Lorna asked a question. How can you hold your leader more accountable when they are not genuine? So Lorna, I just want to make sure if I understand your question, are you talking about the person that leads you?
Like that you report to?
That you report to. And I'm going to go with that assumption for the moment because it in itself makes interesting conversation. So the question is, yeah, her boss. Okay, thank you. Is what do you do when you work for somebody that is ingenuine?
And this is someone, and are we assuming, or Lorna, you can check me, are we assuming this is someone who is not walking the talk? Is that the angle you're going from, Barb?
Yeah, they're not genuine. Let's go with that. They're playing the game. So I heard it. So this is a little bit of a sideline, but it was an interesting one. I heard it's been a podcast I was listening to this morning that said, it's not your job's job to make you happy. And if you're not happy in your current job, you're probably not going to be happy in your next job. I thought that was really good.
It is good. And just to add, I'm going to add that I actually had somebody say that to me once. I was unhappy in my job, and I was telling him that I wanted to transfer to another location. And he said, okay, well, so what's it going to be there then? Oh! Yeah, I turned it around. Just saying.
I understand the first part of it. I don't understand the second part of it.
It's not your job's job to make you happy. The only person
I understand that part. I don't understand the second
only
part.
person that can make you happy is you. So if you quit a job because you're unhappy in that job,
It's not the
another
job.
job's likely not going to make you any happier.
It's
I've
not
done it. We've all done it.
Mm-hmm.
We all left the job because we weren't happy there.
Yeah, we were. And did the next job
That
make
doesn't
you
mean that doesn't mean we weren't happy doing what we're doing now or what we did subsequently after that.
happy? But I
There
didn't
have
get
been bad situations.
sure.
And in my situation, it wasn't a bad situation. I was just being a baby.
I've done that too.
And so my district manager called me on it, and was the moral of that story. Okay, so I transfer you, and then what's your problem there? So yeah, that's my point there.
So I think the gist of it being, if you're looking for happiness in that job, that's not where you're going to find it.
And a lot of people are. They blame the job for them not being happy rather than looking inside and understanding that happiness is an inside job. All right, so I derailed us. So let's get back because we got a couple more.
Let's go back. Yeah, let's go back to Lorna's question because we're almost out of time, and then I want to also address Dan's question. And since we started late, we can go a little bit later. My answer is the question was, how do you do it when your boss isn't authentic? My answer is you mail it in until it becomes untenable, and then you go somewhere else, or you wait for them to leave. One or the other. I have to leave or they have to leave, because in a general environment, unless there's a real level of trust, there's no opportunity to have that authentic conversation in that boss employee relationship. How are you going to talk to your boss about them not being authentic or genuine?
If you don't trust them.
If
there's no trust, how are you going to talk about trust?
I lived that relationship for a little bit, and it ends in a divorce is what it ends in.
Yeah. Yeah. And
So
Lorna, keeping in mind that the only person you can control is you. And so however you choose to respond to that, that's absolutely, or anybody who's having this issue, you're not, I mean, even if you had, let's say you did have enough chutzpah to have a conversation with the boss you don't trust about the fact that you don't trust the boss, you're not necessarily going to make that person change, and you can't make that person change. You only have 100% control over you and how you approach it, feel about it, and you're the only one that knows what that means to you and how that affects your world. And like Kevin said, if you can do your job and you like going there every day and it's not a big enough issue, then hey, more power to you. But if it's too much, then it might be.
Because for me, again, it goes back to is it a trusted environment? And if it sounds like it's not a trusted environment, so the person's not going to hear that as feedback. It's going to be criticism. The walls will be up, and it's just that's not going to be well received unless they've done the work to create the environment to have those authentic conversations.
I believe those are the things that really hold us back. And me personally, those are the things that have held me back my entire life, is not addressing something because I know it's not going to be well received when I absolutely don't know that at all. So not confronting people and reading Brené's Brown book, we've talked about rumbling. So not wanting to rumble because it's not going to do any good anyway. They're not going to receive it well. They're the boss. They don't have to listen to me. There's a lot of reasons I have always used for vindicating not confronting people. And in effect, it not only it's never going to get better without confronting it, in my opinion, but it absolutely can get worse. And for it to fester and get worse because of my inaction, that's my personal responsibility. And you're right, Kevin, if it doesn't get better, you can choose to put up with it or you can choose to leave. But confronting them is going to do one of two things. And, it's that, or get off the pot. So we can either rumble with it and they can be open to it and I can improve it, or I can leave. But I've gone most of my life not wanting to improve it. I don't want to rattle any cages. I don't want to bring attention to myself. And that for sure is a 100% guarantee that it doesn't get better because I never said anything. So I would encourage to open communication with that person, but be prepared, like Kevin's saying, be prepared. If it doesn't work, you might have a better choice to go somewhere else. It just depends on whether that's a breaking point for you or not.
And she says, I love my job and our team, just one link that's not genuine. And so it is about focusing, great comments, about focusing on what you have control over and having the opportunity. There have been times in my life, because we all have blind spots, that luckily there were some people in my life that had the chutzpah, is what you call it?
Yeah.
To say something. And I think delivery of it always is going to be important. And just to start planting some seeds. You don't have to go, everything that is a challenge in one meeting, but starting to plant some seeds about what that is. And I also think the other thing is just be the role model of what you want as well. And if it sounds like it's more of a frustration than a breaking point in this particular instance, and be the role model and ask for what you need. Have the conversation about what else you need in that relationship to make that relationship better. And make sure you also share everything you're grateful about in that relationship. And again, what gets our attention gets us. So are we equally letting people know what we appreciate about them as we are about what we need from them?
Yep. Hey, I want to, and I got cats and dogs living together here, so anarchy could break out in any moment. I want to address Dan's question. He says, I've been struggling. This move has been a blessing and a nightmare combined. I found that I'm a lot stronger emotionally and mentally, but I have huge doubt moments. How can I regain my focus and solidify my confidence when I feel these things quicker than I've been? So I'm interested in hearing what y'all have to say about that. My answer, Dan, is go back to your outcome. What's your outcome? What are your benefits? Why did you do it? And just stay connected, because in those moments when the doubt shows up, you got to go back to asking yourself, why did I choose this in the first place? What's my outcome? How does this benefit me? And what's the alternative? If this isn't it, what's the alternative? But for me, it just goes back to checking back in with the outcome and what are those benefits. And if the benefits that you have listed or that you thought were benefits, if they're not motivating enough, then find some that are, and connect them personally. And then the other piece to that too would be look at it from a values perspective. Make sure that you're considering your values in there. Are your values being met? Are you living your values? Or are those moments of doubt, is something not in congruence with your values? Because if it's in congruence with your values and it's meeting the outcome, then I would say just check in with the benefits and reconnect to the benefits.
Yeah. I always, outcomes number one. The only thing I would add to that is check your stories. So the doubt is coming from stories, and at least the story is creating even more of that challenge for you. And if the story that you're telling yourself isn't benefiting you, write a new story. So an example would be what I posted on Facebook yesterday, today, whatever that was, where I literally wrote out the story that I was telling myself, and it was a challenging story, and then made the choice to focus on something more positive and shift my energy. And so continuing to really check in with those stories and just recognize them for what they are. The benefit of writing a story down, like I did the other day, is I can see it for what it is. It's just a story. It's just my story in that moment. And that then allows me the opportunity to choose something different and write a new story.
Yeah. And Dan's an excellent writer. That might be a great idea for you, Dan. I don't know if you're still journaling or not, but write that stuff down because you're really good at expressing yourself through writing, and check that story. That's a great idea.
Yeah, it really works well.
I think that's exactly it. That's what I was going to say is the outcome, as long as you're focused on that. And, we've heard a lot about, and we've read a lot about focusing on the obstacles rather than the outcome. And that's usually where that frustration and disappointment and that nightmarish feeling comes from. The only other thing I want to add is journaling. So, and specifically the gratitude part. So I have not been really good at journaling. I have done it for a length of time and then stopped and then missed a day or two and then missed a week. And then, so I've been really spotty with it. And so I do know that there is a difference between when I do and when I don't. And I can go to those dark places when I don't, where I feel that self-doubt and unworthy, and my self-confidence drops, and there's a lot of feelings that come with that. And the gratitude process slowly pulls me back out of that. Just think about what you're grateful for in that moment. So when you're thinking about the outcome, Dan, if you write down the things that you are grateful for, what is going well, and we talk about that in class, what are you focused on? Are you focused on the things going well, or are you focused on things that aren't going well? And I think that could be beneficial.
Yep. Awesome. Wow. That hour, boom.
Flew by, didn't it?
It went by quick for me.
Yes. And I appreciate the flexibility for everybody joining us over here on my Facebook page. And we will resume next month on our High5 Facebook page. I'm sure whatever that was.
What I experienced is that when we do it from somebody's page and then we share it to our connections, if they're not connected to the person who's sharing it, they can't see the link because it's on your personal page.
Oh, got it. All right. Well, we'll be back on the High5 page.
Yep.
Next month, and
make it happen. We'll figure it out.
We do still have a couple of spots available in our teen class. If you have a teen 13 to 17, you'd like to see them be more positive, because it's tough being a teenager these days. So be more positive, work on their self-confidence, really accept personal responsibility for what they want in their life, and relieve some of that stress and all that stuff.
Boys and girls. Boys and girls, 13 to 17. So 17.
Got a couple of seats left, July 13th and 14th, College Station, Texas, partnering with Texas A&M University using their state-of-the-art challenge course. Yeah.
Woo!
I'm super excited about that. And we got all sorts of other classes coming up as well. And if you want any more information, we're here.
Yep.
All right, guys, we'll see you next month, and already excited about that. And until then, if you need us between now and then, reach out and have an incredible day. And you know what to do, of course. Choose joy.
Choose joy.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.